So just maybe an hour out of Birmingham, Alabama here. Done 2 drop-offs so far. One in St. Louis, Missouri. It was a sink for $150, and the other one in Memphis, Tennessee for $350, larger sink, and also booked before I had anything else going along this route, which does, I mean, I try not to change prices too much, but when I have something booked and it's just an add-in and it's along the route, yes, I'm willing to give a little bit lower of a price because I'm more motivated to get that shipment. And if I don't have anything booked yet or it's out of the way, I'm gonna give the price that I want to see to make it worth it to go that direction in the first place, because I don't know that I'm gonna get anything else, and I need to quote as if it's the only thing bringing me that direction. So anyways, $500 so far. Since getting south of Chicago, I had $550 in Chicago, which technically was actually an $1,150 shipment. $600 of it paid at pickup, $550 paid at drop-off. So yeah, on this route, because I'll consider it a separate route, I left from Michigan after spending several days at home. So $1,050 so far. But I'm also, what I really started the video to say is I'm getting tired of what feels like a lot of dilly-dallying. Feels like I had to wait a day to get these pontoon logs picked up, because when I was ready to show up and I called ahead because it was getting close enough to closing time that I just wanted to give them a heads up. I was on my way still. Hopefully give them a heads up so they could be ready with them, not, you know, caught off guard and be trying to get them ready at the last minute. But they couldn't get them ready at all because they weren't at the location that they should have been at, because they had never informed anybody of a separate location. And so they were at a separate location that was closed on Mondays. And even though I had given my ETA specifically as Monday, and even though the purchaser had confirmed Monday with them, like I gave him the date, he apparently gave them the date, and they said that would be fine, but they're not open that day, and it's at a different location that nobody told him about. So that was really, I had a lot of mixed feelings, and it put me in a place where I had to make a decision, because I had a pre-trial conference today in Florida, which obviously I missed, and that was for a lawsuit that I initiated against an insurance company. I feel it was a very valid lawsuit, and that what I'm pursuing is $7,000. And of course, when, you know, someone doesn't do something right and intentionally screws you over, basically, the outcome of that, it's really hard to pin a number on, because the number that should have been paid out initially was $7,000. However, as time goes by, you know, things change either for the better or worse. One thing that changed for the better is that I reached a reduced payoff amount with the company that had financed the vehicle that got totaled. So I did end up settling with them for less than $7,000. However, the continuing impact on me of having lost that vehicle, having had an insurance policy that, in my opinion, should have covered it, not do anything at all, being without a vehicle, having to search out a different vehicle, eventually financing a much more expensive vehicle, this one, which is actually less capable. It's newer, it's nicer. I don't care. I don't want a vehicle that beeps at me every time I take my seatbelt off in the parking lot as I'm moving around, or open the door, or, you know, put it into reverse with the door open because I'm, you know, looking out the door or whatever. I appreciate the fact that this vehicle has been reliable for the most part. I've put tons of miles on it with very few significant issues. Really no significant issues. I really am thankful for that. Yet I also spent a ton more money on it than I would have spent had things gone the way that they, in my opinion, should have gone in the first place. With the first vehicle that I bought, which it was a much less expensive vehicle and actually had a higher towing capacity because it was a 250, a V10 250, for that short time that Ford made the Triton V10 250. Heavy duty truck with an 8-foot bed. You know, it was basically a couple of airbags away from a 350 capacity. And this is very much a V6 150 that is downshifting 2 or 3 times to pull this fairly large, but you know, not insane trailer that I'm pulling right now. So anyways, long story short, $7,000 settlement in the balance, hanging in the balance, and I made the decision, because it was my decision, it was my choice. I made the decision to wait for the day to see if the pontoon logs would be ready the next day, which was not guaranteed because of the miscommunication and missed communications. They couldn't even say for sure that the location that had them would be ready the next day, but they did get ready. It was very much a values judgment. On one hand, I felt like just let it go. Tell the customer I'm sorry that this is the way it went. However, I gave you the exact day I would show up. I was on track to show up that day. I was literally 20 minutes from the original supposed pickup location within the business day, and they weren't ready for me, so I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna head out. But on the other hand, I don't like to cancel on people, and I had the option to wait for a day. I could have said it's going to cost X amount more. If you want me to wait, you're going to at least have to cover the extra stay at a hotel, which I don't usually stay at a hotel. I usually sleep in the truck, but my truck was filled from the back seat all the way to the back bumper and the trailer with items. So, you know, I could have played hardball at least and said, well, at a minimum, I'm going to need you to cover X amount for my stay, my time, my hotel. And he probably would have done it. So I probably could have, you know, gotten an extra $300. Obviously, hotel was like $75. But if I'd really said like, hey, it's going to be an extra $300 or I'm not going to do it because I gave you the day. It's not your fault. I'm not mad at you. Sounds like you communicate everything. It was this place that messed up. But regardless, this is what it's going to cost. This is what it's worth to me to wait around. I didn't do that. And the reason I didn't do that is because, well, A, it wasn't the customer's fault. But, you know, I could have put it on him to then put it on the company that messed him over. But B, that's just not how I like to treat people. And I do think that there's a huge distinction between somebody who sets out to do you wrong, sets out to be dishonest, sets out to intentionally, I'm referencing the insurance company here specifically, to intentionally sell you a product that they're not going to stand behind, that they're not going to uphold in the way that it's described at the time of sale. You know, all those things, that's very different than an honest mistake. And as far as my customer goes, if there was any mistake on his part, I'm pretty sure it was an honest mistake. Now, the business that sold him the pontoon logs and said, yeah, Monday's great for pickup, and then said on Monday, oh, actually they're at this location that's closed on Mondays, probably still an honest mistake. It's a little bit of a hard one to understand. Like, how do you fail to communicate those important details, like those crucial details? That's borderline inexcusable, but it could still be an honest mistake. And I do try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but a few phone calls could probably clear that up. Like, hey, could you please tell me what happened here? And according to them, when I called them on Monday, when I called the location that was open, because that was the location that was on the paperwork, as far as anyone knew on our end, it was the only location there was. And they said, yeah, nobody ever informed us of the pickup. Then the customer said, yeah, I absolutely informed them of the pickup, and they said that it would be fine. So, you know, stories don't match up. Usually, if you keep digging, you eventually get to the truth. The point is, for me, there's a certain amount of grace that I want to extend, because I know that people extend grace to me, you know, frequently, and in the ongoing course of business and, you know, personal life even. You know, the number of times I've had to call someone, and it happened on this trip, because when that was delayed, it pushed back at least 2 other deliveries, and I'll get to that in a minute because that's where I opened up this video. It pushed back at least 2 other deliveries, the 2 sinks that I already mentioned, and I had to call them and say, look, I'm gonna be delayed. Now, I could have avoided that, because I could have told, and this is maybe what I should have done, and I am actually struggling with this a little bit now. I could have told the guy with the pontoon logs, hey, I was there when I was supposed to be there. This is going to affect multiple other shipments and other commitments that I have. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to pick them up. I'm going to leave. I'm going to get on the road. And, you know, if it had been my fault, if I had been, like, actually late to the point where I wasn't going to make it within business hours, then I would have said, well, that's on me, and I'm going to get them picked up for you tomorrow, because I'm not going to cancel on you because of my mistake. But ultimately, it wasn't my mistake. I was pushing it later in the day than I wanted to, but I was going to arrive within reason, in advance of closing time, to where any business should accommodate a pickup. I was going to arrive half an hour before closing time. It's a little bit uncomfortable to say that, because still in my mind, like, I should be arriving well before that. However, it is within the window of reasonability to expect a business to accommodate a pickup. And it did, like, when I did pick them up, it did take far less than half an hour to load them up. It took all of 5 minutes, and then strapping them took another 20 minutes, but I could have pulled out of the lot or whatever, if they really needed me to, but they wouldn't need me to, because it's not like every single place is gated. Anyway, sometimes, you know, I feel like, well, I get grace frequently, but, you know, much of the time when I do have to ask for grace, and I do have to call somebody and say, hey, I'm going to be late, I'm so sorry, you know, relatively frequently that's because I am waiting around to accommodate somebody else's mess up. And if I just didn't do that, then I wouldn't have to call other customers as often and say, hey, such and such is not going to happen on the time frame that I said it was going to happen in. You know, it's like a different kind of excuse, because, you know, when it's, I overslept, or I didn't get out on time, or, you know, I underestimated the amount of time it would take me to load or unload this item, that's on me. And that's very much an excuse, right? I did not plan well. But when I get there in time and it's a mistake on someone else's part, sometimes I'm getting to the point where it still feels like just an excuse. It's like, why are all my customers who weren't involved in a mistake or miscommunication, why are they waiting for the one who was? And it was a hard judgment call, to be honest. On one hand, I felt like I should just roll with it, just, let it be, communicate well, which I did with all of the customers involved, and just be like, oh well, this is the way it went. Maybe there's a reason I don't know about, etc. But I'm also starting to feel like, well, maybe the reason is just because I was willing to give up on multiple things, both keeping my timeline for the customers that I'd communicated and on attending my own pre-trial conference, which was pretty important. $7,000 was hanging in the balance there, and all I really needed to do was show up. And there were those nerves going on, like, just the fact that I show up doesn't guarantee that I win the case. It doesn't guarantee that we reach a settlement of any dollar amount at all. So, am I going to give this...
There's a stalled vehicle ahead.
$1,100 shipment for the possibility of winning a settlement. So that all factored in. But money also is not the only factor. And on the how do I want to handle things side of it, it was like, well, do I want to be patient and try to make this happen for my customer? Like, yeah, that aligns with some of my values. But at the same time, letting it go and walking away from that $1,100 in a way, that also lined up with my values, and it may or may not have resulted in exchanging that $1,100 for $7,000 or maybe $6,000, because it was still just a pre-trial conference, and it was just an opportunity to show whoever was representing that insurance company, hey, here's the evidence that I have that you should be held liable for this, which was pretty substantial. And I could have said, I'd rather just settle today for $6,000 than have to come back in 3 weeks for a trial to aim for $7,000. But I'm gonna play hardball on the $6,000 because I really think that this case is winnable, and I really think that I will win it if it goes to trial. So, I'm not gonna offer to cut the price in half. And again, that goes back to what I want to pursue versus what I don't want to pursue. That's right. I don't even want to pursue the extra $100 or $200 that I could aggressively request from this customer with the shipment that was delayed by a day, and it would be reasonable, right? Like, hey, I'm just asking you what it actually cost me. I had to buy more food. I spent a night at a hotel. I lost time. I lost time and progress towards other deliveries. Not to mention, this possible settlement, but I can't really hold you responsible for that. That's outside of the realm of shipping things. But just within the realm of shipping things and doing the normal things like driving and eating and sleeping on the road that goes along with shipping things, like I could very easily say, you owe me some extra money on this, just for the fact that I stuck around for an extra day for you to make it happen, and I didn't have to, and it would have probably cost you a lot more if I didn't do that. But I don't want to pursue that, and it's partly because that person never gave me any evidence that he was out to wrong me in any way. But the insurance company in question here has given me a lot of evidence that they were out to wrong me, or at least that they were so negligent and so incompetent in handling their own business that it was an inevitable result that could be expected to be the experience for every customer. And that's not okay when you're charging somebody hundreds of dollars and collectively charging your customers hundreds of thousands of dollars for a product that you are mismanaging, at the very least mismanaging, and possibly intentionally manipulating so much that you're going to fail your customers. So anyways, to come back to how I started this whole thing before I got on a rant, I feel a little bit fed up with myself for what feels like a lot of dilly-dallying, and I was trying to frame it like, I'm going to take better care of myself, and I'm going to, just get more rest and take a slower pace and be okay with that. And maybe this is forcing me to take the pace that I should have been taking from the beginning, and do reasonable amounts of driving per day. But you gotta do something in the day. So if I'm not driving, I'm not somebody who really just sits around much. So if I'm not, driving is when I sit around. So if I'm not driving, I was just spending energy on other things like building out the frame on the trailer, and just spending energy without making progress that I would have been making if I'd been driving. And at this point, like, I get to my second drop off at like 2 p.m. or get wrapped up there around 2 p.m. today in Memphis, Tennessee, and have a 13-hour drive ahead of me to get to my drop off, which is...
There's a stalled vehicle ahead.
When did Google start feeling like it's necessary to tell me about every stalled vehicle, every lane closure, every construction site, as if I don't have eyes? And how do I turn it off? It's so annoying. It's like, makes me want to just use my other phone, put the destination in, and then turn the data off so that it can't tell me anything. I want Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever map app that I'm using to tell me how to get to my destination and nothing else. And I don't think there's even a setting for that. So it's just so annoying. And ridiculous. Like, how dumb do these tech companies think that the average person is, that they need to be told in advance when there's a vehicle? And don't even talk to me about safety. There's no safety element to this, because Google will say, there's a stalled vehicle ahead. Is it still there? Click yes or no. I'm driving. You want me to pick up my phone? Like, okay, let's be honest, we all pick up our phones when we're driving, but you're actually asking me to do something you know is most likely not legal and generally considered to not be safe, and you as a major tech company are going to ask me to do that. Like, if I pick up my phone while I'm driving, that's on me. But if you're asking me to do that, that's a separate issue. And no, it's just ridiculous. There's something hazardous ahead. This is a great time to ask you to pick up your phone, evaluate whether it's still there, and respond by touching the screen of your smartphone. So just utter stupidity. Anyways, what was I saying? So at this point, 13-hour drive. It's 2 in the afternoon. I'm losing an hour by driving into Florida, and I'm like, I don't feel like sleeping on the road. I don't want to get a hotel. I don't want to spend 10 hours at a hotel to get a full night's sleep, plus at least an hour on the check-in side and an hour on the check-out side, moving my stuff into the hotel, moving it back out, putting it back in the truck. And maybe it's the ultra running and adventure racing videos I've been watching, but it's just like, you don't have to this is really bad to say from someone in the driving profession. When you're driving, the risk is different than if you're running. Like, if you fall asleep when you're running, you're gonna fall and hit your face, and that's gonna be the extent of the damage. If you fall asleep when you're driving, that is putting your life and other people's lives at risk. So there's a massive difference there. And I believe there's absolutely a point when you need to call it when driving, and when running too, I suppose. But my point that I'm getting at being, you don't have to stop the first second you're tired, the first time. Basically, let's use a different word here. You don't have to stop the first time something is hard. It doesn't have to be easy all the time. And sometimes pushing through a little bit is worth it. And that does not need to look like, just fighting sleep and trying to stay awake when you can't. Like, for me, I know that there's things I can do to regain my alertness if I want to put the effort in. One thing that I can do that will really wake me up and keep me awake for a while is to go for a run. And it can just be I stop to get gas and I just do a few sprints. And like, that's because there's a physiological reason that you're getting tired when you're driving, right? It's because you're sitting. It's because your blood isn't circulating. It's because your muscles aren't engaged or moving. It's not just because you haven't slept in X number of hours. I've felt tired when I, have just woke up from a full night's sleep and I'm 3 hours into the drive. And having a sleep deficit could contribute to that. And there's a whole different way of looking at it there. Like, you do have to take care of yourself, and running an ultra marathon is even different than a whole lifestyle where you're not taking care of yourself and not getting enough sleep. Running an ultra marathon is like you make the conscious choice that you're going to stay awake for 24 or 48 hours to reach a specific goal, and then you're going to hopefully go back into a life routine in which you're getting enough rest. And that's a very different thing than just pushing yourself day in and day out for weeks or months or even years at a time. Like, there's a point where, you know, self-care is important. But there's also a point where you can push through something that's a little bit hard, and where you can recognize, like, I'm not tired because I haven't gotten enough sleep. I'm tired because I'm not moving. I'm tired because I'm not stimulating my mind. I'm not stimulating my body. I'm just sitting here and I'm staring ahead, and I have been for 8 hours straight. You know, so it's about whether I choose the easy way to deal with it or the hard way to deal with it. And the easy way is to just pull over and crawl in the back of the truck and get a nap or fall asleep for however long, and then wake up and be like, I still don't feel like getting up, and fall asleep for a little longer and wake up again and be like, I still don't feel like getting up. Which to me, you know, sets me up to be even more lethargic. Oversleeping affects me as much or more as sleeping for less than 8 hours, knowing that that's what I've chosen to do, and I'm going to push through till X destination, and I'm going to get my rest there. So, you know, being lethargic and embracing lethargicness is not necessarily the answer. Like, so today I'm just like, okay, I don't need to care so much about how I feel and self-care. I'm on a mission to get a job done. And I'm able to push 2 or 3 hours beyond the easy stopping point for the sake of getting that job done, because I've already called my customers in Florida enough times to say things are going to be delayed. And whether or not I have to do that again is all up to me. It's, am I going to choose comfort and a slow pace, or am I going to choose to drive into the night and get there? Traffic is freaking annoying as it is during the daytime, especially. The night can provide a nice opportunity to not, you know, have to reset the cruise control every 2 minutes, because, you know, when you have the cruise set at 70, you're just trying to stay in the right lane. Half of all the trucks out there are going like 85, and the other half are going like 62. And then they're constantly, like is happening right now, merging around you and boxing you in. And it's just completely impossible to just set the cruise and go 70. Hitting the gas and the brakes all the time, and when you're driving a little F-150 pulling a 5,000-6,000 pound trailer, that's a lot of gas when you have to hit it and catch back up. Like right now, these two semis need to, I mean, they don't need to, they are doing exactly what I'm doing, which is driving the speed they want to drive. And it just so happens, okay, now he's being annoying. Now he's slowing down. Or maybe the other one's speeding up. Right, because I don't know if they don't have cruise, or their cruise is just a lot more variable, because, you know, they speed up like 10, 15 miles an hour going downhill. So I'm sure it's annoying to other people around me when I go to pass a semi who I've been going consistently faster than. And then all of a sudden it's a downhill and he's in the right lane, pulling ahead of me, but not going to stay ahead of me, because as soon as we're going back uphill, I'm downshifting 3 times and I'm going to maintain 70. He's going right down to 60. And it's annoying. It might have a silver lining in that it keeps me alert, and that seething anger just, helps me stay awake. But man, it can be nice to get in some hours at night where you only have to hit the brakes and the gas every 10 minutes because of semis instead of every 2 minutes or less. So there's that.